recently visited my automotive local paint shop and they quoted me $7,000 to do a full paint job for my car. And if you know me, I do not have the money to afford that. So today in my own home garage, I'm gonna be spray painting my Civic all on my own. And the reason I'm doing this, we have tons of spots where it's just all messed up. We have the clear coat literally just peeling right off of the car, and that's not good. And it's not just the clear coat that's peeling, that's the problem. We also have some like bubble rust going on over here. It looks pretty messed up. I don't know what we're gonna do for that yet. I've done all types of things to this car, such as modifying it with exhaust, headers, clutches, whatever you can think of. But the one thing I haven't done is cleaned up the paint. Not only am I doing this all in my garage, I also have zero experience. And the first step to painting a car is prepping for the sanding. So I got my brother here, and we're just gonna take off things like headlight, tail lights, and whatever else that needs to be taken off before we start sanding. Bumper shouldn't be too hard to take off. Just a few bolts and clips. Oh damn, how'd you do that? You just like, I'm not trying to break my shit. Oh my God. Everything kind of flew off when that popped off, but here's the grill too. But at least we got that off, so now I can start taking the headlights out. No, the bolts are off, so it should just pull right off. Oh, never mind, I forgot about a cable. I don't know why I didn't think about that. A headlight's connected to a connector. What a surprise. Oh, damn it. All right, I got mine out, but I hope I didn't mess up the connector. This other headlight's out. That wasn't too bad. You know, when I bought this ratchet, I was told it was a waste of money, but it actually seems to be working pretty well for this situation. I knew I would need it one day. It's a dual flex head ratchet. All right, one bolt left and it'll be out. There's something else I missed. Oh, I hope oh, damn it. I just broke my taillight. I'm pissed, dude. I really am. You probably seen this pop off and fly. I just broke my taillight, so I'm gonna have to replace that. That sucks. Yeah, right there, just this part just snapped off. Pretty upset about that, but let's just go ahead and continue. Oh shit. Dude.
That one was already broken. That was
and this shit my knee. All right, well, our tail light's out. And now that that's all taken off, we can start hooking up the sander. And we also got a mask for me and a mask for my cameraman. Now, he was a little upset. I got the better mask with filters on it, so my lungs are gonna be a bit safer. His, if something happens to him, we'll just use a tripod. Right here, we got our DA sander, 6-inch. I like 6 inches. I've seen some people use just a little teeny orbital sander. That's not gonna be efficient for us, so we're gonna be using this one. 6-inch soft foam interface pad. This is gonna help get some of like the angles where it like, you know, curves like that, and also help with not putting too much pressure on the car and cutting too fast down and accidentally go to bare metal. We're starting with 220, so that's as low as we're gonna start with. So we're not going down to bare metal. There's no reason to. The paint job isn't that bad. And then after the 220, we're gonna go ahead and move to the 400 grit and do a little bit of wet sanding after maybe, and then we'll be ready for the paint. It's also always good to use a corded sander or an air sander, because if you use a battery operated one, then the battery could die on you mid sand job, and you gotta wait till it charges back up, and that just takes way too long. Also, it's negative 10 degrees outside right now, and we do have the garage open for some ventilation, so if it don't come out great, y'all know why. Now, I haven't used this sander before. I bought this for Black Friday. It was a good sale price. The only types of sanders I've used is those little orbital ones. Crack open the 220. I did get 50 discs for this. That's probably way more than we need, but we'll have extras if we ever paint another car. Who knows, we might paint the truck soon if we do a good job on this. I think the technique we're gonna go with here is like kind of just work our way from the front to the back. And now that we're about to start sanding, we're about to throw our mask on and switch over to the GoPro. I decided to start with the hood because I felt like that would be the easiest, since it's a really large surface and there's not too many curves, just a little bit on the ends. And the hood was also the worst out of every panel. You can just see all that clear coat flying up when I was hitting it with the sander. I was a little too aggressive on the body lines, which I definitely needed to be more careful with, because after I was done sanding them down, basically the whole body line was just bare metal. So yeah, definitely need to be way more careful on that. All right, hood's all good with the 220. So now we're gonna go ahead and move to these panels right here. Front fenders are pretty cool. There's not too many body lines either, just one body line that goes across. And that's just the order that I decided to go in. I know a lot of people do different orders, maybe start from the back or the top, but this is just the way that I like doing it, all up to preference. This is also my first time using the DA sander. I'm regularly used to using an orbital sander for things like wood. I've never done metal before, but the DA sander makes things a lot easier and a lot quicker. This pad's getting a little burnt out, so we're gonna go ahead and change it. I guess this first one had a little more left in it, but we'll go back to it if we need it later. Right here, I'm just feeling out the panel. Although it's not supposed to be super smooth yet, it's always good to get a feel. I was on my knees, a little questionable obviously, but they start to hurt. So now I'm gonna be sitting on this. Hopefully it'll be easier to sand certain spots while sitting on this. And the seat helps for a little bit while you're working on the higher spots, but as soon as you have to get down for the lower portion of the panels and the side skirts, you end up having to get right off of it anyways, and you end up hurting your knees and back no matter what. So sanding a car is just an uncomfortable experience, but at least we can save our knees and our back for the higher portions of the car. Plus, I don't have the car jacked up as well, because I'm gonna have to take it right back out of the garage to clean the dust off anyways. So yeah, just didn't make sense to me. Alright, so the seat didn't really help that much. I ended up having to get off of it anyways. If you've never sanded anything before, it takes a lot of energy and lots of strength, especially considering I have the dual action one and not just a little orbital sander. That's not as heavy as this one. This one's pretty heavy, so it gets pretty tiring pretty quick. But we already knocked out the hood, front fenders, and doors, so we don't have too much sanding left to do with the 400, and then, or I meant with the 220, and then we'll go to the 400. So I just took like an hour break. Like I said, sanding does get really tiring, so you can't do it continuously for like 3 hours unless you're like Superman or something. I don't know. I'm not. But after that break, I realized I wasn't able to get everywhere that I wanted around this spot. I'm gonna go ahead and actually take these mirrors off so I can touch up that spot a little bit. Okay, there we go. All right. Good thing that wasn't too hard. All right, popping this side off now. Popping this off is the easy part. Right here, I'm just sanding the areas that I couldn't get when the mirrors were still on there, because as you can see, the sander would be hitting all over it and scratching it all up. So definitely had to get those out of the way. Also pretty much just sanding up the areas that I didn't do before my break, because like I said, sanding can cause a lot of fatigue really quickly. So if you want to be careful and do this right, you definitely have to take breaks. Also, when I was sanding right here, some yellow started to come up, so I stopped, checked the sandpaper, because I was unsure while that was happening. I thought maybe something was stuck on the sandpaper, but after it came up on another spot, I realized that may be normal, but I still don't know why it happened. So comment down below if you know what that is or what that means, because it happened right here again when I was sanding right there, and I was a little worried, but kept moving on and just hoped that everything was good. Also had to make sure I sanded the side skirts, because it wouldn't be a paint job without the side skirts. Also, the trunk and rear bumper were really weird because of all the angles, especially with this big sander. Like I said, 6 inches, so hard to get all the angles in the body lines without being too aggressive. So I definitely should have went with the sanding sponge or hand sanded it somehow. I finished up the car with the 220 grit, and I don't think it's looking too bad, honestly, although I don't know how to really judge it. But if we take a look, the hood, in my opinion, looks pretty good. Few spots you could tell where the clear coat was already peeling. We'll fix that up with the 400. At the start, we did mess up using the wrong sandpaper, and we went bare metal in a few places, but we'll fix that also with the primer when we get there. In my opinion, the only things that really look bad are the bumper. I don't know what I was doing with that. And then there was also a few spots that I missed with the DA because it was too big and it couldn't get up here. So as you can tell, we still got some clear coat up here. We're gonna just fix that with a sponge and some 220 grit, fix that, and then we'll be good to go with the 400. I also did spoiler right over here. So this is looking nice and dry. I did think I ended up cracking it though when I was doing it. Whatever, unless it was already like that, I honestly don't know. But yeah, so things are going pretty good in my opinion. So we're gonna go ahead and touch up the spots that need to be touched up and then start with the 400 grit. So I finally got everything sanded down, did my final touches that I went up to. Like I said, we went over with 220 first, and then went over the whole car again with 400, and then I looked around for places that I didn't like or places that needed to be touched up. We fixed that all out. So now we got the car out of the garage, and we're gonna go ahead and just clean this thing off, spray this thing clean so there's no more dust on the car, because we don't want dust on our paint job. That's not good. Clean the garage out a little bit, and then we'll start masking the car up. Trying to dry the car up a little bit so nothing rusts, because there is some bare metal exposed, so stuff can rust pretty quick. Leaf blower's doing not that great of a job. I don't really know if I should use a towel because the towel can be dirty, so we're just trying to use air. It's the next day now, and we got the car back in the garage after we cleaned it, and I'm just gonna take the time to add up some of the supplies and equipment. So if you want to do this job as well, you know how much it's going to cost you. So we'll start with just the supply. So each one of these was $6 each. Masking tape was about $5 each. We got 2 of those. Right now we're at 22. This kit was about $17. And then I already used the sandpaper, but we spent about $90 to $100 worth of sandpaper. We are going to have to buy more though after we spray the high build on. $139 for just supplies. And then let's add up the paint as well. So right here we got our epoxy primer. Now you really don't need this unless you go down to bare metal. Since I do have a few bare metal spots, I thought it would just be better to do that. So that right there was already $140 just for the epoxy primer. And the regular primer hasn't come in yet, but that was another $140. So boom, we're already at $419. And then we got our clear coat and our base coat right here with the stuff we're gonna have to mix it with. It came in a kit, it was around $377. That's about $800 on supplies alone. That's a lot of money, and so now let's add up the equipment. Right over here, I did have to buy this compressor because all I had before was like an 8 or 10 gallon one, and that wasn't gonna cut it. That's plenty enough for the second thing that we picked up, which is a low volume, low pressure air spray gun. You're gonna wanna get the low pressure, low volume if you have a smaller compressor that can't run for as long or supply the amount of air that a high pressure, low volume one would need. And this cost me about $80. Oh shoot, I forgot to say how much the air compressor cost. The air compressor cost me $400. Plus the gun, another $80. And then the sander that I picked up, which is a DA sander from Harbor Freight, I got that on sale for about 35, 40 bucks. So that's about $520 just on equipment. So if we add that to how much we spent in supplies, we come out to a total of $1,320. So if you choose to do the route of a spray gun, which you obviously need a compressor to run that, it's gonna cost you a lot more money than just buying a few spray cans and whatever you need to sand it. You'll be closer to around, still in the hundreds. You probably wouldn't be in the thousands if you just chose the rattle can. But in comparison to what we said at the start of the video, me getting quoted from a professional paint job 13 grand, $1,320 doesn't sound that bad. I did pick this car up for $1,500 alone. So it's funny though, the paint job we're doing to get it looking all nice is the same amount of money I spent on the car. But now that we got the prices out of the way, we're gonna go ahead and start masking with the paper and some tape. And before I started going ahead and masking the whole car with my brother, I thought this part would actually be pretty annoying and I wouldn't like it, but it ended up actually being really chill. Was able to watch some TV while doing it, and this is pretty late at night too, like 10, 11 o'clock. The whole process of this was actually just pretty fun and relaxing, especially after having to deal with all that sanding. That was definitely a relaxing part and had me ready for the next day to go ahead and start priming the car. This is the morning after, and we're just mixing up the epoxy primer, which is a 4-to-1 ratio. And basically what the epoxy primer does is protect all that bare metal that we have showing so it doesn't show up as rust later on, which the high build primer won't do. Also just testing out the spray gun on the blanket to make sure it's spraying out properly. Then I started spraying it down and it was coming out really, really wet. And I was worried, but since I haven't sprayed anything before, even though I knew it was unusual, I just continued to spray and hoped that maybe it'd figure itself out, which obviously wasn't the smartest thing in the moment. In a little bit here, I'll actually end up explaining what I did wrong, besides the fact that I was also spraying super close. I have been nervous about this process for a while, but I realized the best way to get over those nerves and learn was just to start. And I was ready for mistakes to happen and for things to go wrong, but like I said, the only way to get past those things is just go ahead and start. After it was coming out that bad, I definitely should have stopped, figured out what I did wrong, but I ended up spraying that whole mixture of paint before I actually checked to see what was wrong. You could just see all the spots that I'm missing. I'm barely getting any coverage, but like I said, this is just a part of the process and we do end up figuring it out. If you ever do something for the first time, you can still be a quick learner, but also mess up the first time, because to be a quick learner, you also have to fail first. Anyways, I'm gonna leave y'all to me explaining what I did wrong and why I was coming out super wet. So we're just sitting outside right now, letting the first coat flash. Now, when I first started spraying, we mixed up some in the liner, put it on the spray gun, started spraying it, and I noticed it was spraying really wet, but I was unsure why. So I just continued to spray, and that was for about half of the car, I'd say, but I was unsure why. And after spraying all of it, I remembered that we didn't mix the paint. That's not a mistake you want to make. I should have took my time. We're gonna hope that doesn't make things too bad. We're just waiting for it to flash off, and then we'll do the second coat and see how it looks after that. Now here's me spraying after the paint was actually mixed, and the difference was actually very noticeable. So we definitely figured out that it makes a crazy difference if you don't mix the paint. So if you ever paint a car, guys, please do not forget to mix your paint like I did. And now you could just see the difference in the way it's laying down and the coverage that I'm getting. I'm also spraying further away from the car, which is actually opening up the fan pattern and creating less runs. So I'm happy that I figured it out instead of just doing the whole thing wrong. This made me a lot more confident going on, and I could actually see the color change now and just get better blends overall from panel to panel. And with my overlaps, because before when the paint was spraying, I couldn't tell how much coverage I was getting. Also, my goggles were really dirty and messed up. Alright, so it's the next day and we let the epoxy primer dry overnight. It's looking pretty dry and nice now. High build primer came in the mail, so now we're going and get to spray that next. We also got a paint suit, which we did not have yesterday. So we're going to go ahead and pour this in our mixing cup, mix it up, and then put it in our gun and start spraying. Mixing up the paint is actually pretty fun. We're using a bigger stick to mix it up in the container before we pour it in the mixing cup. And this is going to be the same mixture as the epoxy primer, which is a 4-to-1 ratio. So we're just going to go ahead and mix it up real good and then pour it in our paint cup. And for the epoxy primer, I did use plastic liners that kind of work like baggies. You take the air out of them first and then you could start spraying. But for the high build primer, I just decided to use the plastic paint cup. And we're gonna do 3 coats of this high build primer. And what you see me spraying on there now is the 3rd coat. So you can kind of see the color change from the epoxy primer. Although I did do something really dumb. I picked gray for both my epoxy primer and high build primer, when you're really supposed to pick 2 separate colors for each if you do 2 different primers, so you can see your blends better and see the color change better to know how much coverage you're getting. And if I ever do this again, I'll definitely pick 2 colors like white and gray or something. Although I do feel like I was still able to see the difference. It's a little more grainy and dry. Basically what this high build primer is doing is just giving us a good surface to spray that base coat on. It's not going to be super smooth after I spray this. We are going to have to sand it down after, and it will be smooth after that. This is just creating a new surface because the epoxy primer doesn't do that. That's just to protect the bare metal. Spraying this high build primer, especially after the first 2 coats, I really started to figure out the distance more, the patterns I was doing and wanted to go for to just get even coverage all across, and most importantly, 0 runs. I actually don't think I had any runs from the high build primer. Only runs I've had so far from the epoxy primer. So as you can see, I'm taking longer strokes, doing the edges of each panel first, and really just aiming for that good pattern that I need. It would have been nice to know this at the start, but no matter how many videos I watched or how much research I did, I just really wasn't getting the hang of it until I actually started doing it and messing up, and I just got better over time. Also, spraying high build primer is the perfect time to learn how to spray because there's not as much pressure as when you're going to be spraying your base coat and your clear coat, because even if you do get runs, which you most likely won't because of how dry you're spraying this, you'll be able to sand it out after. And really any other imperfections you may have caused or unevenness. And that's just one of the great things about high build primer. So I had a really good time spraying it down. I think I learned a lot, and I'll be ready to go into the base coat and clear coat with much better patterns and coverage. So it's been like around a day and a half since I sprayed the primer. We wanted to make sure that it's all nice and dry, which it is now. So you see the hood, a few of the panels, the door, nice and dry. But the one problem is it isn't smooth. We're gonna go ahead and sand it. We got our sanding block and 400 grit. We're actually gonna do the 400 dry, which is looked down upon in the industry. We're gonna go over it with 600 wet after we do the 400 dry, get some of those scratches out, and I think it'll be all right and turn out pretty smooth, and then we'll be able to spray our base and our clear, most likely either tonight or tomorrow. After doing it like this for a little bit, I realized this wasn't gonna work for the whole car, so I did end up actually picking up real sanding sponges that already had 400 and 600 grit on them, and that actually made things a lot easier. I tried working with what I had, but I had already put in a lot of effort, and I wanted this to actually turn out good, so I figured it was just worth it to go ahead and pick those sponges up. Okay, so we just knocked out the hood and one of the quarter panels, slide it across the panel, and if it feels nice and smooth, that's how you know you're doing a good job, because you want a smooth surface for that base to go on. Because if you touch the panel before you sanded it, you'll notice maybe it felt a little grainy, a little bumpy. Basically what that 400 dry does. Very lightly too. I'm not applying much pressure. I'll just knock it down to a smooth surface and refine it up with the 600 wet. That process ended up actually being a full 2 days. It took a day to do the 400 dry and a day to do the 600 wet. But as you can see, I'm just touching the panels and they came out really, really smooth. So I'm happy that I went with the 400 dry to knock down all that texture and then just refine it up with the 600 wet. Just showing y'all around the car so that y'all can see everything is smooth and even. Even made sure to do the spoilers and the mirrors. The mirrors are the hardest part, obviously, because of all the curves. Now we're just going ahead and opening up this base coat, and it's the perfect time to tell y'all the color, which is British Racing Green Metallic. And I'm also putting some tape there because I saw somebody else do it and they said that it could prevent some of the paint spilling out and have a cleaner space to work with. So we're gonna go ahead and try that. And just mix it around with our mixing stick. The base coat was a lot more wet. It wasn't as thick as the other paint was, but obviously that's how it's supposed to be. Just thought I'd point that out. And I actually went back to the plastic liners. I enjoyed those a lot more than the plastic paint cup because I didn't have to sit there and clean it and wipe it after every coat. And I know you can't see much, but hopefully you can see enough of that color laying down. The angle does get better in a little bit, especially once I start laying that clear coat down. I'm getting good coverage, and we're doing this first coat a bit dry. Not super dry, but not super wet either, especially because there's still probably tons of dust in the garage or possibly even on the panel. So yeah, we're gonna continue to do this first coat dry and then bump it up to get it a little wetter on the second and third coat. And once we start spraying the coats down wetter, that's when that glossy metallic look that we're looking for will start to come in. It's really nice to finally see this color going on there after all the prep work we did and the sanding. So this is really just a satisfying moment for me, and I'm glad we're finally at this part after all the mistakes we made. And right here I realized something was wrong with my pressure, and I went to check the air compressor and I forgot to turn it on, so wasn't refilling that whole time. And that definitely messed me up and kind of messed some of my coverage up, but we just kept going and finishing up, and that's pretty much the whole first base coat. I just have to grab a ladder so I can still get the roof because we're short, so definitely can't reach the roof, especially when the car is on jack stands. And like I said, guys, the angle does get better as I go on, and you'll see a lot more of what I'm doing with the spray gun. And hopefully you learned a lot from the beginning when I was spraying as well. And for mixing up my base coat, I came up with a new technique, which was pour some base in one of the mixing cups and pour what I had to mix it with in another cup, and then just pour it in the cup that I was actually mixing it with, because that made me spill a lot less rather than trying to pour it from the container or possibly mess up my ratios, which we definitely don't want at all, and especially don't want when we're spraying down base coat. Here we got our second base coat going on, and that's when you'll finally start to see that glossy look kind of pop out because I'm spraying it a lot wetter than the first coat. Yeah, if you take a look at the hood, you can really just see how wet it is. But surprisingly, for how wet it was, we still had no runs. So that means I had a good distance, and speed as well matters too. If you're going across the panels too slow, you can also get lots of runs. And like I said, this is all just stuff I learned from messing up in the beginning. And I'm also showing y'all every panel after I spray it down, just so y'all can see that difference and blend to blend from each panel as we spray it down with the second and third coat. We also finished spraying that third coat of base as well, and now it's time to take apart our spray gun and get to cleaning it. Because if you don't clean your spray gun out and you try to spray a different type of paint with it, it's most likely going to be clogged because you left the paint in there for too long and it hardened up. So no matter how tired you are, please take apart your spray gun after every different type of paint you put in there and just clean it right then and there, so you won't have any trouble in the future or have to buy a new spray gun because you were too tired to clean it. We're also using paint thinner to clean this stuff. I know a lot of people prefer acetone because of how strong it is, but that's just what I decided to go with. Also, I hate the thing they seal that with because when I popped it open, it splashed all over me, so come up with a better design. And right here, we're just mixing up the clear coat. And now this stuff was sticky, and I knew that before using it, and things were actually going pretty good until I ended up spilling it, and that's when sticky stuff got everywhere. This first coat of clear really started to bring out the gloss, and I'm doing 2 coats of this, spraying it wet on wet, and as what professionals say, that glassy look is what we're looking for after we're done spraying it. Anyways, I'm gonna just leave y'all to some music and some spraying, and hopefully y'all enjoy the rest of me spraying down this clear coat. This is also where the better angles start to come in, and you can see the fan pattern and the spray gun a bit more. And now I'm done spraying both coats of clear, and I'm just taking apart my spray gun so we can clean it. And here's what it looks like right after I sprayed it, but I'm gonna show y'all tomorrow after it's all dried up. So it's the day after I finished painting, and as you can see, I went ahead and took all the masking tape off, all the paper, all the plastic, which was definitely a task, by the way. But all that's off now, and now it's time to show you the paint job. starting with the front of the car, I'd say the hood is pretty good. I did like spraying the hood, but I will also show you all the imperfections as well. As you can see, there's kind of like linings. I don't know if it picks up on the camera. There was some clear coat that was peeling on the hood before I started spraying, and I thought the primer would cover it up and give me a good enough surface to hide these lines from the clear coat peeling, but I happened to be wrong. After sprayed everything, I actually would have had to go down to bare metal there to fully knock that down. And another imperfection I kind of see on a few spots is something like this. I think that happened when I was spraying the clear coat. Didn't get laid down right. Also a few back here, that same thing. If y'all know why that happened, let me know down in the comments. I'm not too sure. Like I said, I think it's the clear coat. Another few things are kind of where I masked right here. You can kind of see that the paint didn't fully lay down in certain areas, so that might chip later and peel later. Also, I had a really bad problem with the trunk. As you could see, I don't know what this is called exactly, but I know it was from the first set of primer that I sprayed, the epoxy primer. I was spraying really close, and I got like really bad runs in the back. So that, I couldn't even get that out when I was sanding down the high build primer. That just wouldn't go away no matter what. You can also see some of the areas where I did have runs and where I kind of knocked it down, smoothed it out a little bit during the sanding with the high build primer. You could still see it, but from far away, you won't really be able to tell that much. Also, I didn't choose to do body work with this paint job. I just did a regular paint job. I didn't have all the money to do body work and fix all the dents, or there was some bubble rust right here before I painted it, and I kind of just primed it a little more than other areas, painted right over it. Doesn't look too bad. I'm happy with it. And guys, I'm not gonna hide anything. This is just how you have to do things when you're in a garage and you barely have any money. So in a paint booth, they're gonna have a stand for all this stuff, a stand for the bumper, a stand for the spoiler, stand for everything. I just put 2 chairs together like this. Stand was $20, by the way. I couldn't afford it after I bought all the paint. Put the spoiler like this. Once this side dried, I would just flip it over like this, spray the other side, and then we kind of had the mirrors just sitting on the chairs, and that's how we sprayed that. But honestly, didn't turn out that bad for spray painting on some chairs. We're also definitely gonna have to get new wheels soon as well, kind of match the paint job. This is British Racing Green, by the way. I didn't mention that. So yeah, we're gonna get some new wheels. Comment down below what color wheels you think would go best with this. But besides all the imperfections, I am really happy with the way it came out. Overall, I think I did a really good job. And remember guys, this channel has never been about perfection. It's been about doing the best you can with what you have. And I'd say for around $1,300 or $1,400 totals, I did the best that I could. I learned a lot throughout the process, and if I ever decide to do it again, I'm sure it will turn out much better. I really hope y'all enjoyed the process of me painting my Civic in my garage. I know a lot of people had wanted to see that. We saved about $12,000 doing it ourselves, so I call that a pretty good job. And stay tuned for the next video because we are turboing the Civic. Max Speed and Rods went over and sent us a turbo kit, so that's gonna be going on there soon.